Oh, I think we are
Broadcast is
live.
live.
So,
It says
hello,
so.
everybody. We're live
Hey,
to the faking of the president. Reading from Washington, D.C., virtual D.C., the nation's capital. And we are starting
Yeah.
actually in New York. So in New York and all over the country, everybody clap. I have my cowbell. So there it is. So, yay, 2 minutes of yay for the frontline workers and for the delivery people and for doctors and drivers
nurses,
and
nurses,
everybody that
Yeah.
nurses.
does
Yeah.
what they do. We thank you so much from New York, from DC, from southeastern Virginia, where we all are at. All of us here, thank you. We've got
I'm hearing a lot of loud
Yeah.
noises in my ear.
Rosen is next to me, I think. You'll see on the far end Erica Wright. You see Chris Chambers below me, and S.A. Cosby right there. That's the five, the fabulous five tonight for our faking of the president reading. 19 stories of White House noir, and we do have five of them tonight out of 19. All right. So, hey, there's a couple of cops outside too. So I hope they don't come get me because I haven't been long yet. I haven't put in like for extra stimulus or anything. And, you know, I haven't cashed anybody's dead to check. We're playing it, straight right now, even though the government is. So you have us five here. Thank you for joining us. And we're also here from the DC bookstore, East City Books, which Chris and I were at a couple of years ago for the Obama inheritance. We had a very nice reading there. Very nice people. Hey, that's it. That's our 2 minutes are up. But there's a guy who plays. He plays New York, New York by Sinatra. Then he does Liza Minnelli. Then he does the two Empire States of Mind. Then every night he plays another song. So hopefully that doesn't interfere. It hasn't in the past.
Well, no, that's great that he does that.
Yeah, I guess it gets everybody happy. Like a little bicycle with two speakers, and it's louder than Woodstock. I don't know how you do that. You know what I mean? If there are 500,000 people in front of these two speakers, you would hear it. Now, we're back. We're back here in New York City for Washington D.C. Chris and Erica are down there, and S.A. Where are you at?
I'm at about an hour south of DC.
Okay, all right. So that's not too far down. You're like well above. You're not down into Virginia Beach area or anything.
No.
But you got another 100 miles from there, or
Yeah, I'm in between.
in
Takes me
between.
an hour to get to Virginia Beach. Takes me an hour to get to DC. So I'm kind of in between.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it in a minute. I did introduce everybody. These are the five of us tonight. We're five of the 19 stories of White House noir. We're going to find out what White House noir is all about tonight, and more about the book and more about ourselves. So what I'm going to do first is go through and introduce you to everybody individually, and we'll jump back with everybody in a second. So I'm going to bring S.A. up here. Hold on, guys. And S.A., you come up here with me, and we'll talk for a little while.
All right.
Nice to meet you. We've never met until right this moment, right?
Actually, we met. We met in St. Petersburg.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But we were all imbibing
Yeah.
quite a bit.
I should have checked in with you about that. We did meet. That's right. I was gone when we won the Anthony Award, and then you won the next year. I wasn't there, or you wouldn't have remembered me. Probably. But Anthony Award has a way of,
blowing the mind cells.
Sure. Yeah, that was a real nice time down there, and I'm sure last year was in Dallas, right?
Yes.
You had to be there. We kind of were trying to get it. We wanted a two-peat, We did the Bouchercon anthology, and all of a sudden these guys say no anthology, and I'm calling them for like days. And come on, we're never gonna win anything in our lives. We deserve
It was all your fault, Peter. They got rid of it because of you.
Cool. Your story was the grass beneath my feet, right?
Yeah, it won the Anthony. It won the Anthony for best short story, and I couldn't have been more shocked.
I felt the same way. I mean, come on, you know? I mean, we did a favor for the Bouchercom people for doing that anthology because somebody dropped the ball. I'm not sure. I don't really know, but you know, I don't think it was like the Ukraine call or anything.
I'll tell you, it's funny. I was so sure I wasn't gonna win. I didn't take like any like nice clothes, and then I just had like my normal black shirt and black jeans. And my wife was like, "You gotta have a suit. You gotta put some clothes." So we go out into Dallas, and I buy like all mismatched attire. So my vest didn't match my pants, and I'm like, "I'm not gonna win. I'm not worrying about it. I'm not gonna win." And I won. So for all eternity, I am a really bad Sears men's fashion ad. So.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful memory and
Oh, yeah.
a good one. Now you got a new book coming out, Blacktop Wasteland.
Yes.
That sounds really good. You're having a lot of good success with this. It hasn't even come out yet, so that's good for you. You know, especially at this time.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's gotten a lot of blurbs that I never would have thought in my entire life I would have gotten. Dennis Lehane said some nice things about it. Walter Mosley, Lee Chow. So I'm very proud of it. It's from Flatiron Books, and I'm really excited for it to come out on the 14th of July. I hope everybody will check it out. Southern Rural Noir is, you know, if you know about movies like Winter's Bone or Hell or High Water, it's a lot like those, except it's African American cast. So definitely very proud of it. So I hope everybody will check it out.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to be stuck in Danville, Virginia in 1976, and they locked my ass up for 2 days. I got stuck in the Pennsylvania County courthouse, county jail for 17 days without a magistrate or anything. You know.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
you know,
there's definitely a good old boy.
I know the kind of treatment that you get down there. You know.
Yeah, there's definitely a good old boy contingent into the legal system. I'll leave it at that.
All right, man. Well, I'll bring you back in a little while to read, and I'm gonna bring up Erica now. Okay. All right.
Good deal.
Talking to you. We'll talk.
Thank you,
Erica. Erica
Hi.
Wright. She's in D.C. right now, where we would be with supporting East City Bookshop. So, and that see that little ticker tape along the bottom there that's going along, that's from their bookshop. So what are you up to these days, Erica? Have you got a new book coming out?
I do actually. I have a nonfiction book coming out this fall. It's part of the Object Lesson series, and it's on snakes. And I'm scared of snakes, and this is kind of a wild project for me to be working on. But about 7 years ago, I sort of on a whim attended the Rattlesnake and Wildlife Festival in Claxton, Georgia, and had this kind of amazing experience with all these people who are so enthusiastic about snakes and conserving them and changing people's minds about them. And I definitely screamed a few times because the cottonmouths and rattlesnakes were way too close. But I did have this kind of amazing time. So I started working on these essays that I didn't know would turn into anything. But yeah, now they're a book.
All right, way to go! I mean, I've enjoyed reading Harry Cruz, Feast of Snakes.
Oh, I haven't read that.
You need to read that book. That's like he's in his own class. Hell of a writer, Harry Cruz.
Okay, great.
I read that, Feast of Snakes, and it's set down in maybe in that same town during one of those festivals. Except it's a local flavor, the people. But we'll look forward to seeing that. And of course, you have your Famous in Cedarville. That's been out for a while now. But even so, it's a new book, and I'm sure you're excited about that.
I am, yeah. Famous in Cedarville came out last fall, but the time slips by so quickly. It still does feel new. And that was a lot of fun to work on. That one's actually set in an approximation of my own hometown in Wartrace, Tennessee, population 500. So I kind of wanted to write a noir style book in my own hometown. So also something rural, like Essay's new book, which I can't wait to read.
Yes, all of us want to read that one. And we also want to have people read The Faking of the President.
That's true. Yep.
Put those on the list: Snakes and Blacktop Wasteland. And also, you're pretty new to DC, right? A couple of years now, or?
I've been here a couple of years, and I just wanted to actually say how much I love East City Bookshop. It's a really great spot over in Capitol Hill. I think I was only here a week or two when I walked over to see Jennifer Chang release her poetry collection, Some Say the Lark. And it's just a delightful space run by really good people. So link below.
You also are the editor for Guernica, which is such a well-respected journal. So it was such an honor for you to join me in this project, and I'm very appreciative. And I'm going to bring you back in a little while to talk about your story and read. So and I'm going to bring up Chris now. So sounds nice great. Talking with you.
You
and
too.
Erica in a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
And here comes Christopher Chambers. He's going to join me. Hi, Chris.
Hey.
How are you? We've
Pretty
got
good, and I have Vlad and Don over here over my shoulder. So here.
It's a love affair. Our love affair will be such fun. It'll be that's it.
It's interesting to see Mitch McConnell recently tell Barack Obama that he does not understand the rule of law. That was today. So it's a laugh riot here every minute, man.
Every day, all these things are happening. We're losing our rule of law.
Yeah.
Every day going by, and it's just beyond me how we haven't been able to evoke the 25th Amendment. Something, and it's just because of 3 senators. We've got to
basically it's 3 people. Any grifter, any maniac, any con man lingers because there's a bunch of people who are either making money or staying in power because of it. The minute that cover is gone, he's gone. But they've discovered that they can protect their kind of toppling order by backing him, and that's nothing new. That's been
they're grafted, sure, yeah, that's nothing new. That's been going on, but it's just like it's an open season basically, and out in the open season. You can say this, and it's something we're just not used to seeing.
Yeah.
Of like the county sheriff or something, or something. It's like the third world country, which is giving too much to this now.
The sad thing is that this is 2 cities. I mean, there's the Trump and the McConnell city, and then there's the city that is suffering from COVID, a lot of deaths, and that's the type of city. And I'm going to do the plug now, Peter.
Okay, it's fine.
The city I talk about in Scavenger, which you are publishing.
You're going to be publishing in October. Scavenger.
In October.
A mystery. Chambers. He's right there in that seat before you.
Yes, there it is. So, that's the city that's suffering right now, and that's the city where we have, like about 1,000 people dead. It's not the same as Jared and Ivanka.
No, it isn't.
So then that's what that's what drives me to write those kind of novels about this real part of the city. So I'm looking forward to that, and thank you, Peter, for believing in me and publishing it, and thank you for
welcome
thinking about me for the sequel, and
making up. Of course, it's a pleasure having you on board, and it was a pleasure in the Obama. And let's talk in a little while when we bring you back and talk about your story. And in The Faking of the President, I'm going to bring up SJ now. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes, Chris. And we're going to bring up SJ Rosen from the Bronx, and she's about 10 blocks from me here. We could almost reach out our windows and scream if it were a little quieter. And a couple of buildings were out of the way. Hello, SJ.
Hey, Peter. How are you?
Good to have you.
Am I on? You gonna hear me? Okay.
I think we got you.
Good.
Now you're better. Yeah.
Oh, there's my file. My filing cabinet is making a big appearance here. That's better.
That's okay. File cabinets are good. You look at them and you have a serious person there. Only a serious person would have a filing cabinet. A serious writer, someone who has archives that it means something to them to get at quickly. And you had experience in architecture for many years, right? Do you have some of your architectural drawings in there or things like that? Or
No, I don't have drawings. I do have some architectural papers still. But I don't have any drawings.
Where's your flat file?
I worked in an office for years and years, and so actually the work is all theirs. The work product that you.
Right.
So I have very little. I have sketchbooks, but that's it.
Okay, so you have won the Edgar Award yourself, and you edited Bronx Noir, of course, right?
I did edit Bronx Noir, yeah.
I'm upset that we didn't know each other because I would have loved to have a crazy story in the Bronx.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of people I did not know were from the Bronx or ever involved with the Bronx, or that I could have asked.
Well, I had been out in San Francisco for a long time doing theater. I had a theater, so I came back around that time when that book came out. So it wasn't the right time, but I wish maybe if you do another one, we'll talk. Okay.
Talk to Johnny.
You wash mine. We can get on that Ukraine phone call. I'm going to give you some of the COVID. It's insane right now, huh? And you also have your series of Lydia Chin and Bill Smith, which has been going on a long time. Beloved people. They're like the yin and yang of detective work, and it's a very sweet series. Please read that if you can. So what else are you up to? Have you something new coming out?
I have a Bill Smith book coming out in December called The Art of Violence, and it is coming from Pegasus, which is distributed by Simon & Schuster, and it is set in the New York City art world, which is great because I got to write a show with the Whitney without having to actually paint any pictures, and that was a lot of fun. And I have stories coming out. I'm working on 2 new projects: one a nonfiction book, and one a novel of the beginning of a new series, if I'm lucky. If I get past the plot problem I'm having right now, if this book ever kind of develops. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things. There are always irons in the fire, and so I'm just working. It's been interesting here because I've actually been getting a lot of work done, because usually I work in the morning and then I go someplace in the afternoon. Even if I'm teaching, it takes me an hour to get there. Now to teach, I turn on the computer at 3.
Boom.
So I actually have a lot of time, which from the very beginning I thought, boy, you had better use this time, because if you fritter it away, eventually this period will be over, and what will you have done with it? So, and besides, it keeps me sane. It keeps me from really getting all depressed and thinking, how did we get here?
Yes.
What moron went back to the Jurassic and stepped on a goddamn butterfly, and feared us way off course like this? How did that happen?
I personally have a little play of the 2 Kushner brothers who dropped a test tube in Wuhan, so that's my feeling. The 2 Kushners, Joshua and Jared. These are our James Bond villains right now. Nobody else.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll totally buy it.
All right, good.
Kushner.
Good.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do them, the Kushners anthology. We'll put them in different situations and let them destroy the world in each one.
Let them destroy various things as they go.
Yes. I'm gonna bring everybody up. I'm gonna bring everybody up for a minute, and let's talk about how we're surviving this. And then I'll start again with SA, and we'll talk about his story and let him read. Okay. So everybody's coming up for a second, and we'll talk about this as we started getting into this virus, this COVID-19, the coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. we're in it, and our fake president has a lot to do with how far we're in it. I'm sure we can at least agree with that.
Mhm.
So how's everybody holding up? I mean, you're using your time wisely. I'm sure we all are. You're teaching at Georgetown. You're just finishing up now, Chris, or you got another week or
Yeah,
so?
I'm grading senior capstones now, and then I have to record a graduation message.
Ah,
And, although I wasn't the most popular person when they usually have a reading period or a reading week, and they were interviewing people about whether they should have that. And I said, why the hell do they need that? They've been at home since the end of March. And all of a sudden, all these 19-year-olds started,
right.
saying, burn in hell chambers and all that kind of stuff. There went my shit. I should have kept my mouth shut. So.
And they were all a lot of good things. Getting that your new book, a lot of good things happening for that. So you were doing something right during.
Yeah, well, I'm actually working on the sequel to this now, Peter. So
all right. Well, we're gonna have to sell some of that one, but we'll
yes.
do it. Erica, you're holding up all right with all you're doing. Snakes.
Well, the snake book is completely finished. But I was working at the beginning of the lockdown. That was my focus, was fact checking, and it's good, I think, to have a distraction. My husband has been doing home improvement. You might notice there are no doors for my office. So he's been slowly taking all the doors off and sanding them down and repainting them. And I've been every weekend I just kind of plead, let's not make it the bathroom weekend. Let's maintain some dignity in lockdown.
Just in case, right?
You never know.
All right. Well, we know one thing. We don't particularly want to see another 6 months of Donald Trump, let alone 4 more years. There's just no way this can happen. And I mean, what could be the outcome? Well, let's say we turn the Senate and he gets reelected, so then we can impeach him, and then we can impeach Trump, Pence. I mean, what a situation we're in. The virus almost seems like sanity compared to this.
I'll tell you, with everything going on, I'm not surprised we have murder hornets. That's
yeah.
Doesn't shock me.
They belong in this scenario. You're right.
You gotta read the Jewish Bible. We have those 10 plagues before the Exodus from Egypt. Wait till the Potomac flows with blood.
Well, that's already happened.
I think so.
That happened back when Marion Barry was mayor. So I mean, we're beyond that.
All right, so I'm going to talk with Sean for a second about the faking of the president, his story, and we'll go from there to each story, and then bring everybody back at the end. Okay? So does that sound cool? Like a good plan? All right. So you stay on there, Sean.
All right.
All right. S.A. Cosby. Mm-hmm. Here he is. He's got a new book, Blacktop Wasteland, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's going to be a good book. But right now we got the faking of the president, and you chose George H.W. Bush, the senior,
right.
who I find is another James Bond villain that stuff he was involved with, And so tell me about what you chose, why you chose him, and what you're doing.
I think because I agree to a certain extent. I think George H.W. Bush is, if Trump is stupid Goldfinger, then HW is stupid Dr. No.
Yeah.
It's just kind of boring. You're there. We got to acknowledge it, but it wasn't. But I wanted to use him because of all the presidents that were left, because, this was a really exciting project. So a lot of presidents got snapped up early. He was the one that is the most malicious. Like, he didn't, you weren't all the way evil. You weren't good. You kind of were just there. And so it made me think of him as almost a puppet, and so that's kind of reflected in the story.
Yeah, he was always a puppet. But the thing that really blew me away about him when I found out that he was in Dallas on the day
Yeah.
when the day Kennedy was killed, I said, "That's it." He had his hand in it, and of course, LBJ. It was a bipartisan assassination.
The one time both parties worked together.
Right. I think it was the last time it truly happened.
Yeah.
And it was one of the worst times. So anyhow, your story is called 999 Points of Light. And good old Bush Sr. used to say he had this speech about the Narnia or whatever it was, right?
Right.
So why don't you read some of your story and leave the audience hanging, and I'll say and we'll talk a little bit afterwards. Thanks.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Alan sipped his coffee as he sat in the window of Smitty's Diner on H Street in D.C.'s Chinatown. The traffic passed by the window at a snail's pace in the late October rain. Alan checked his watch. He was going to give Gary 5 more minutes, and then he would pay his bill, head over to the exercise facility in the D.C. Secret Service headquarters, and do something constructive with his one day off this week. How is it you look younger than me, and you look younger than you did in college? A raspy voice asked. Alan raised his head, and Gary Tunstall was standing in front of him. His old college roommate was looking a little worse for wear. His long brown hair was streaked with gray. His deep blue eyes were rimmed in red. A road map of broken veins wound its way across his nose and over his cheeks. He had on a worn leather jacket over a plaid lumberjack shirt and chinos so thin they seemed to shine at the knees. What can I say? Black don't crack, Alan said. Gary laughed. It came out sharp and high-pitched. He cut off the laugh so abruptly that it startled Alan. A few awkward seconds ticked by as Gary stood near Alan's table, rubbing his forefinger against his thumb. You want to sit down, Gary? Alan asked. Oh, yeah, Gary said. He slid into the booth opposite Alan and motioned for the waitress. He slipped his hand inside his jacket, and Alan stiffened until he saw Gary remove a flask from his inner pocket. The waitress poured him some coffee. He eschewed sugar or cream and instead added whiskey. Do you want some coffee with your whiskey? Alan asked. Gary blinked. He seemed to realize he was still pouring from his flask and stopped. He screwed the cap back on and placed it in his jacket. Just a little something to fight the chill, Gary said. He took a long swig from his cup. Alan noticed his hands were trembling but said nothing. What's it been, 7 years? Gary asked. 8, Alan said. Alan Jefferson, star running back for the Maryland Terrapins. I never pegged you for an establishment man. How does all that work anyway? Do you have to say you're a Republican if the president is Republican? Gary asked. It's not a political job, Gary. That was always your thing, Alan said. Yeah, but last I heard, you had graduated a degree in accounting. It's a long jump from crunching numbers to punching protesters in the face, Gary said. Alan took out $1 and put it on the table. I agreed to meet with you because you said you had some information pertinent to the safety of President Bush. I agreed to meet with you as a courtesy, Gary. I don't spend my days punching people in the face or stomping on the necks of activists. I used to arrest counterfeiters and now I protect the president, regardless if he's a Republican or a Democrat or a member of the Bull Moose Party, Alan said. Gary smiled, and for the first time, Alan thought he looked like the Gary from their dorm days, the bright, funny philosophy major with the Mensa level IQ. So you did pay attention in political science class, Gary said. Alan sighed. I'm going. He stood. Timberwolf, Gary said. Alan swiveled his head to the right. What did you say? Timberwolf. That's the secret service code name for George Herbert Walker Bush, right? Gary said. Alan sat back down. How the fuck do you know that? He asked. His voice was a low bark. Gary finished off his coffee. After college, I went out to San Francisco to join a self-sustained community. I wanted to get off the grid, man. Create a life for myself that didn't diminish the planet or force me to conform to the standard Western civilization bullshit. Gary, how did you find out? Alan started to say, but Gary cut him off. I met some folks out there in Silicon Valley. People were using the tools of our technological imperialism to tear down the foundations of that imperialism. Gary, listen to me. Under the law, I could detain you right now just for knowing that code word. So listen to me when I tell you this. You have 5 seconds to cut the shit and the philosophical double talk and tell me exactly why you asked to meet with me, Alan said harshly. The waitress glanced at him. Alan put on his best unthreatening smile. She went back to counting her tips. Did you know Bush was shot down during the war? Spent 4 hours on a life raft in the South Pacific. He was rescued by a submarine. He then spent a month on the submarine helping to rescue other pilots. Some of the pilots he didn't rescue were captured and had their livers eaten by their captors. Supposedly, Gary said. Gary, I don't need a history lesson. We were cool in college. You were one of the few white boys who didn't assume I was an affirmative action pity case. But that only goes so far. Explain yourself. Now. Or I'm going to arrest you, Alan said. Gary locked eyes with him. What if I told you that Bush being shot down wasn't a random act of fate? What if I told you that when he was rescued, he didn't spend a month on a submarine, but instead was taken to a special center where he was given psychotropic drugs and subjected to hundreds of hours of psychological manipulation and hypnotic suggestions, Gary said. He never broke eye contact with Alan. Alan licked his lips. Gary, I can tell you've had some hard times, man. I get it. Look, I don't know how you found out what you found out, but I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. I'm not going to arrest you. I'm going to go back to the office and write up a report, but I won't file it for 24 hours. Get out of D.C., Gary. Get some help, Alan said. Have you ever heard of the Bilderberg Group? Gary asked. Yes, it's a bunch of rich businessmen who meet every few years to count their money. Well, that's not all they do. How about the Bohemian Club? Yes, Gary, it's a private club in California. And the Illuminati? Alan rolled his eyes. The Illuminati doesn't exist. I'm going, Gary. You got 24 hours. Listen to me, damn it! Gary screamed as he slammed his fist down on the table. The other patrons turned and stared at them. Gary, calm down, Alan said softly. You don't get it, Alan. It doesn't matter what name they go by. These guys, they control everything. I know people who have cracked the computers of the Lehman Brothers, J.P. Morgan, Halliburton, General Dynamics, the Pentagon. Gary, Jesus, calm down. They're all in on this. For years, they've been manipulating us, indoctrinating us, herding us like sheep toward an inevitable slaughterhouse. War, famine, death on a biblical scale. They control presidents, prime minister, crimes lords, all to further their agenda, Gary babbled. Alan saw tears running down his face. He grabbed Gary's wrist and squeezed him tight. Hey, man. Hey, we're going to go over to the hospital and get you some help, Alan said. Gary snatched his arms back and put his hands to his face. Don't you get it? There is no help. The game isn't rigged. There isn't even a fucking game. They've been building to this for years. Everything all right over here? The waitress asked. We're fine, ma'am, Alan said. She walked away but shot him a look over her shoulder. I don't even know why I'm talking to you, Alan. They're everywhere and they control every fucking thing. But you're close to the president. And you were always the best of us. Always have been. Alan rubbed his temple. Gary was obviously a very sick man. And how do you know I'm not a part of this Bohemian Club, Illuminati, Bilderberg Group? Alan asked. Gary swallowed hard. Because those bastards are not just obnoxious members of the bourgeoisie. They're also racist as hell. Alan sighed. Okay, well, great catching up, Gary, but I gotta go. He stood again. There are 7 words. If you say these 7 words to Bush, it will break his indoctrination. I mean, it's supposed to. Green, time, neutral, Texas, lira, blood, cord. Say those 7 words in that exact sequence, and it should break his mental blocks. Maybe then he won't plunge us into another never-ending war. They tried to start it in Panama, but that didn't have enough juice. Goodbye, Gary, Alan said. Alan, I'll be dead in a week. Remember the sequence. Remember the sequence, Gary yelled as Alan headed for the street. And that's it. Thank you.
Right. Way to go. S.A. Cosby, 999 points of light. The one is probably inside Bush's head when you say those
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. I say, but Bush Senior I give him a thumbs down. Let's see what all of let's bring everybody else up for a second. Bush Senior, what do we feel about him? Thumbs down, right?
Look, compared to now, I say double thumbs up. And his son too.
I don't like him bombing Panama for 1 second. He had to go down there and show off his little toys, kill 3,000 people, threw them in the ocean. No. This guy is a hideous creature. Bush Senior. It's just we're stuck with this guy now, right? But no love for George Bush Senior, especially knowing A, he was in Dallas, B, he was in charge of the CIA during the Iran hostage crisis, and he set up every dictator to sell cocaine to ruin America in the 80s. Put a lot of African American families and broke them up and put their dads in jail.
The thing about Trump is he's the stinking tide that rises all other boats.
There's no way to get rid of that stench. These guys, they could go throw up on the emperor or something. It was okay then. All right, here's our cast. The fake president. Thank you, SA. We're going to have you back in a few. Okay, we'll be talking in between maybe stories since it seems we all do pretty well getting together for a second. So we'll see everybody in a minute. I'm going to talk with Erica, and we'll talk about her president, number 26. And who was number 26?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Trust Buster Teddy, right? He was the trust buster. It's kind of hard not to like Teddy. I'm sure he had a lot of things going on that, at that time there were so many games being played, and the bankers were really taking over. Mm-hmm. So he had to be in their pockets in a certain way. But so how did you come up with Teddy, and where did you put him?
I've always been a little obsessed with Teddy Roosevelt. I think it's because I love natural history museums, and he was a complicated figure. I mean, he had a lot of bloodlust. He liked kind of war. He liked conflict, but he also was, instrumental in all of these conservation efforts in the U.S. and national parks. And he was a hunter and really respected animals. And he's always just been someone who's very interesting to me. And I was thinking, what's interesting, this is the first historical piece I've ever written. So that had a lot of challenges, but what's interesting is how much more privacy sort of older politicians had. And he would leave office for expeditions. He would sort of just go, with his crew out into the mountains in the West. And that was perfectly fine that he was kind of off the grid. And no modern president could ever do that, right? We have to know where they are at absolutely all times. So, I kind of liked writing about a historical figure, even though it required more research for me, at least.
All right. Well, why don't you read from your story, and we'll talk a little bit afterwards and bring everybody up and see if everybody likes Teddy or not. Not your story, but Teddy Roosevelt himself, because everybody loves your story. We all love it. We know that. So
all right,
you're going to thumbs down to what you read.
Okay, that's good.
I don't want any misunderstanding. Sorry about that. Okay, go get him, Erica Wright. Right. And it's the Great Compromise of 1901, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. All right, thank you. I'm going to dive in. The body looked as fresh as the day a .30 caliber ball cartridge entered its right abdomen, rupturing the small appendix, nicking the pancreas, and exploding out the back. Remarkably, no bones were broken by the bullet's journey, though the victim's subsequent fall did shatter 3 ribs, which had to be repaired before being wrapped, like the rest of the skeleton, in thread. Of course, that was easy enough. There's a joke that the colonel wrote himself in a little notebook, typically kept for supply inventory and specimen dimensions. How do you skin a huntsman? Trigger finger first. The colonel stepped away from the neck to survey his progress. To be sure, working with feathers and furs was easier, but he'd tanned the skin first. He hoped that the wax and arsenic solution created some stability as well. And to think, only a few months earlier, he despaired that he'd ever do more than ducks. Most importantly, the body was upright again, could be swirling a brandy and holding court at a salon. Well, aside from the nudity, of course, though the colonel had tied an apron across the genitalia, which had mostly recreated from clay anyway. Artistic license and such. It was hardly improper and would be covered by a sturdy fabric, he imagined. Most people think that taxidermy requires a butcher knife, something ghastly and rigid, but a small, flexible blade does the best work, and the colonel kept a set of them sharpened at all times, should a request come tapping at the inconspicuous door on Wallach Street. Thankfully, this subject had been frozen rather than salted, making it easy to scrape off all the meat and blood. And he'd been a lean man, rendering the question of fat almost negligible. Yes, indeed, the colonel considered himself lucky. He hummed a little as he considered the empty sockets, deciding that he'd make a special trip for the glass eyes. Nothing on hand quite suited the senator from Colorado. Had the original been brown or blue, he'd quite forgotten in his rush to incinerate the offal. In a state of deep concentration, he didn't notice the door behind him opening, nor did the sound of slippered feet disturb him. Lee had always been a small woman. She'd worn wool on purpose to avoid the rustling of muslin, silk, or God forbid, chiffon. She liked to sneak, not unlike the bevy of pets, live ones, she kept at her residence. Perhaps their little faces are why she always had trouble admiring the work in front of her, though everyone said her father was a natural. What else would they have said, though? An eccentric, more like, she thought, unimpressed by the fox staring morosely at her as if its soul awaited rescue. She turned to the mounted bass, a little disquieted but resolved in her mission. The man must be stopped. Creature comforts, she said, pleased when the colonel jumped. His startled expression quickly hardened, and he wiped his blade on a leather strip, as if to remind the young socialite that she stepped into his lair, not the other way around. As quiet as your company, I see. Too honored to speak, I'm sure. You would descend to me? A single flight, we're hardly in the bowels. Lee felt that the new electric bulbs were too bright, casting long shadows of tails and claws on the far wall. They did, however, give her a clear view of her opponent, fit and formidable. His hair slicked away from his face without any apparent attempt at style. Combed himself, of course, after washing his face. He smelled like tobacco and salt. You've come to admire my handiwork, then. I've come to request you stop. The colonel's mouth turned, a cruel edge to the look. And who are you to make such a demand? Lee looked down at the tools next to her hand, surprised at how many she could name. Glover's needles, lip tuckers, tumblers, and shears. She spent too much time there, coming to appreciate being unsettled. Her safe, predictable world upturned. Everywhere else she went, the young Miss Roosevelt was coddled and adored, often both. She knew she was considered handsome as her mother had been, but more than that, she was fearless like her father. Unlike her father, she had rare opportunities to bare her teeth. Yet here she was, late and alone in a plain wool day dress. She selected the ear opener, liked the handles fit neatly in her palm. Who am I? A woman with your best interests at heart, a woman with the ear of a president even. She held up her tool at the little pun, but the colonel didn't smile. A girl, surely, on that much we can agree. Not since last March, I'm afraid. Full grown now, they say. Ready to make an acceptable match, etc. The colonel listened to her, but his hands moved back to the neck and the tricky business of veins. Fake, of course. The vascular system could never be saved. It wouldn't matter with the mink, but with a man, he reached for another length of copper wire. If you had caught me on Tuesday, perhaps, but now I've made too much progress. Lee glanced at the senator, relieved that his face didn't look familiar, though they had met. His concave torso made her cringe. How had they arrived at this moment? And how far would she go to protect her own ambitions?
Yay! Let's bring everybody up to clap before we start putting down the presidents. We're going to get into some
I like it. I like it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Very good, Erica. And Teddy was very colorful. You gotta admire the way he was able to, have such a big presence. And he has still have things that remain in our everyday life that we still think about Teddy Roosevelt. So we have to admire that, right?
I watched the PBS special recently, the Roosevelt's an Intimate Portrait.
Yeah, that
and
was really good. Yeah,
he's a fascinating character. He's very much a man of his time. He's the epitome of that early century, sort of a combination of the manifest destiny, fake American exceptionalism, but also a man who you could tell was determined to be more than what his initial circumstances were. Even though he born into a wealthy family, he had an obsession with this masculine ideal. It's a fascinating character.
yeah.
But he was very sick as a child, which kept him from being, that masculine character. And eventually he was able to come into his own, taking San Juan Hill and becoming a hero. And the only thing that he gave a lot more power to the presidency at that time. I think that he added, more power, presidential powers. And in one way it was good, as Erica was saying about the conservation and all of that. But on the other side, there were a lot of bad things that happened from that, like where we're at now, just more and more power kept grabbing. People are going to continue to grab power. And one of the things that he did do is he got hit with the banks in 1907, right? And he put who was it? Was it Rockefeller? He put in there. Where's my John D. Rockefeller? They put him in J.P. Morgan. That's who he put in as like the Treasury, ran the Treasury at that time. And I think that was just a big mistake because,
talking about the fox in the hen house.
Yeah, exactly. And it led us to the Great Depression in the big picture, it certainly did. And it also opened the door to say our Nelson Rockefeller is now all of a sudden the vice president, and 6 years later we're a speculative economy. There's nothing is real anymore. The manufacturing jobs are gone, and you can't blame Teddy for that. But adding to the manifest destiny of power is kind of what do you think, Chris? More than
at the same time he did realize towards the end that corporations were becoming too big and too crazy. And this is at a time where there weren't any labor laws, there weren't any food safety laws, there weren't any worker safety laws. And he was the one that started us down that road. So, I mean, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's almost like he single-handedly thought, I'm going to take on these corporations because I'm Teddy. But he didn't give any thought to what was going to happen afterwards.
Yeah.
And so it's a mixed bag.
It is. That was my opinion. SJ, Teddy. I mean, we all got to give Teddy for his own intent. You got to give Teddy.
I was actually fonder of Teddy before I saw that Roosevelt's show.
Okay.
And one thing that really stuck in my mind was how excited he was after San Juan Hill, and he said we took more casualties than any other group. And he was so, yeah. And the guys who died, it didn't bother him because he thought, well, they died being heroes. Why is that a problem? He would have been happy to do it. And I thought, wow, boy, is that a head we sort of have to get out of.
Yeah.
Tragic masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is the kind of definition of toxic masculinity.
We're working on it, but it's 100 years later, 120 years later. So let's get with Chris now. We're going to talk about James Madison, and we'll do the same thing. This is working very nicely. So we'll come back after Chris is done, and we'll talk to him about James Madison and his story, which includes Andrew Jackson and I think Van Buren too, and Francis Scott Key. So we'll talk with Chris for a minute. And everybody's in there, and we'll see you all in a minute. See everybody in a minute. So, all right. So, Chris, tell us about your story, the Madison conspiracy.
Well, and don't forget the second part of the title, Dolly Madison Zinger, which tests out whether your knowledge of cupcakes.
Right.
But in this town, there's so much bullshit about what the Constitution means and what's and you have a guy who actually wrote it. And the initial drafts or the pitch that they were using, he and Alexander Hamilton got together under pseudonyms and wrote these things called the Federalist Papers, which were supposed to be the initial draft of what people want in the Constitution. And people fight about this to this day. A lot of people don't know anything about it. So what I wanted to do was see, well, what happened if there was a Da Vinci Code-ish apocryphal Federalist paper that, let's say, touched on guns, touched on slavery, touched on religion, touched on who you could marry, things like that we're dealing with today. And let's say that Dolly, who I like to call the founding MILF, we have the founding fathers and founding mothers. Dolly's the founding MILF because she was a crazy lady. What if she were part of an organization that was really trying to subvert him, seduce him, and induce him into writing this thing? Because at this point, he's not president anymore. He's old, he's senile, and very open to suggestion. So that's where I decided, let me see, let me play with that. He's also the only president that's ever been run out of the White House by a foreign army. Abraham Lincoln doesn't count because those were rednecks, but this was a British army coming in and sweeping everybody aside.
They burned down the White House.
They burned down the White House Capitol building. They went batty. But so what I wanted to do was kind of take that as a jumping off point. And my principal character is a freed slave. He's goes by the name of Josiah Bourne, which is my nod to Robert Ludlum, my parents' favorite author. But he's based on a real guy named Paul Jennings. And he may or may not be a member of this secret group that Dolly is a member of. So, so what I'm going to read now.
Let's hear Dolly Madison Zinger.
Yeah, so I'm going to read a different section that I read at the New York one, because this is about DC. So here I'm going to give DC people something to think about in terms of the setup here. Wish I could say more, but Seamus Hannity's about to lay another good lick on me. "Oi, you cheeky nigger," he cries, as if he, not I, in the son of a bitch, bound to a chair at the elbows with good Maryland hemp rope. He slams a fist right into my gut, and this time nothing comes out. With the first punch, much of my chicken stew from supper spattered on the cell floor, there in the jail room under the United States Courthouse on Carroll Row, F Street, in the still smoldering federal city named for General Washington. I can't see the flickering oil lamp, but I can smell it. Perfume compared to this Patty's breath. "Listen, boyo," Hannity grunts. "I'll teach you the meaning of the word pain. I wager you can't even spell PAIN. And it's illegal to teach me to read and write." I spit some blood on him to make his face redder. He's a big un, and I can cut him down if I wasn't lashed to this damn chair. Same odds as brethren and quite a few toothless red-haired mollies enjoyed as they rampaged out here last 2 nights, all because Beverly Snow and the old Epicurean asked them to behave. Snow's spot, hand to God, was my refuge for oysters, blackberry pie, and rum. Freeman could eat in the same establishment as white men, long as we were low in number, dressed well, were quiet, and not obdurate. But these patties were filthy and loud, came from the Navy Yard, demanding food with nary a Spanish gold bit among them. Snow, who's aptly black as pitch, threw them out. They returned with their comrades and lynch ropes, torches, shillelaghs, blades, even murdered 2 little girls right outside Blodgett's Hotel as the rioting spread. Dear honeys, they were apprenticed to their mother, Lydia, for whom I procured a contract at the hotel for laundering linen. Lydia had displaced a syndicate of mollies doing that work. I also helped a freeman, Albert de Villers, get the night soil cartage for that contract for that block. Well, they beat poor Albert, burned his wagons, stole his mule. As for poor Claudia and Anna Jean, 10 and 11 years of age, they didn't go unavenged. Someone went and cut the throats of the patties who bashed their beautiful little heads in. As I alluded, I was somewhere eating chicken stew at the time. Son of a bitch runt of a Marine, his Shako high cap covering his grimy little head like a beer keg atop an apple, appeared with his company at my doorstep, under the guise of protecting we poor cowering colored. With me at the point of a bayonet, he said I was under arrest. Such irony indeed. Were it not for the militia and the Marines and gangs of ordinary Peckerwood shipwrights and cordwainers who had no love for the papist Irish, chanting all about them being illegal and pining for a big, beautiful wall around these shores, were not for them, we'd all be playing liars in darky heaven. And the rioters spared some bondsmen and bondswomen, however. As I was dragged into the courthouse, Seamus Hannity, his brass constable button popping from his girth, confessed the reason. No Irishman had the cash to compensate slave owners. Indeed, the safest among us were the gangs of fathers, mothers, and children, paraded in Mr. Franklin's and Mr. Armfield's coffles, cowbells and all, in full view of the Capitol or General Jackson's White House. So that's my dedication to the city of Washington, D.C., the real D.C. That's why I chose that section of the story for tonight.
All right, Chris, let's get everybody up to give you a big hand. And we'll talk a little about James Madison, if it's possible. He was a little guy, right? He was a very tiny.
He was tiny. And that's where that first MILF thing came in, because he was a tiny, old, little turd, and she was the founding MILF. I mean, so, it's like, why did she get with him? So, the people are still trying to figure that out to this day.
Well, you never know, but anyhow, yeah. The thing with him is that he did get run out of the White House, but what saved the nation at that time against the British was Andrew Jackson's victory down in New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah.
If you think that, and you say, well, look at this Andrew Jackson now, he's got the one of the worst raps ever, and maybe he shouldn't have won down there. Maybe we should have had to all get together then and kick the British's ass, and maybe
remember the war was technically over, Peter.
From that point,
when he won that battle, the war was technically over.
Yeah,
it was one day late.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I got to shout out to my Baltimore people, because they're going to say, no, it was us, at McHenry and North Point that stopped all this stuff, not you pansies down in Washington. So I got to shout out to my Baltimore people then.
Okay. You brought in your Francis Scott Key from there, right? Yeah. He's in the story too.
Yeah.
So, we're doing our own alternate history with the faking of the president, which is available right there at that link at the bottom going across. And we support East City Books, right? You guys love East City in DC, and too bad we're not down there right now, except we wouldn't have SJ with us. But I don't know if I might trade SJ to not have a virus. I might, but it's not to be, and we're happy to be together now and making people minds open up and blowing their minds with our stories and our alternate histories. So I guess without further ado, let's bring up SJ and talk with her and get everybody together after that. So here comes SJ. You guys take it easy a second, and I'll leave you on screen, SJ, with me, who has FDR, who's another kind of a duality of sorts, like Teddy, a little more impressive with World War II and beating the most formidable enemy ever assembled, except ourselves, which might be a better and a bigger and harder enemy.
Yeah.
But even so, so tell a little bit about your story, Mother of Exiles, and then we'll have you read a little bit.
Well, I'm very interested in FDR. I think it's clear that he was a great advantage to this country when we needed him. He was the whole depression and the war and all that, but he was also a politician. There's no question about it. He was a very good politician. Eleanor was much more open, much more raw, and a really fascinating character. The relationship is fascinating, but Eleanor was really devoted emotionally to him, although not physically, but also to human rights. She really, really cared, and there were times when she cared more than he was in a position to um, to act on.
Mm-hmm.
And what this story is based on is two true facts that I discovered. One is that she wrote a column 6 days a week for 30 years. She wrote a newspaper column. It made her the most widely read columnist in the country. And when they were apart, they often communicated by telegram. And so my story is it starts with an actual column of hers, of which I'll read a piece, and two telegrams, one from her to him and one from him to her. After that, I take off and do the fiction, but with the story practically wrote itself. She was a remarkable character, and these days, she would be the one to run for president. Also,
Yeah.
I want to say that one of the reasons he got to be who he got to be was because he worshipped Teddy. He worshipped his Teddy was kind of his cousin. I forget exactly the relationship, but he just worshipped him, and so he tried to follow in those footsteps.
Well, he became governor of New York, just like his cousin.
And Secretary of the Navy, and
president.
yeah,
Sure.
he tried to do everything Teddy did, and it worked for him. It really did.
It's too bad Teddy didn't win as the Bull Moose Party. He might have had 4 terms as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll let you read from your story. Enjoy, and everyone else enjoy. S.J. Rosa, Mother of Exiles.
Okay, well, I got to find it because apparently I put the bookmark in the wrong place. Well, that wasn't very bright. Okay, here it goes. Mother of Exiles. Mother of Exiles, of course, is what the Emma Lazarus poem on the Statue of Liberty calls the Statue of Liberty, Mother of Exiles. So I'm starting with one of Eleanor's actual columns and then 2 actual telegrams. My Day by Eleanor Roosevelt, January 23rd, 1939. Washington, Sunday. What a curious thing it is when a great musician like Misha Elman offers the proceeds of a concert trip throughout the country to the Fund for Refugees, that he has to be guarded on the way to and from his first concert. What has happened to us in this country? If we study our own history, we find that we have always been ready to receive the unfortunates from other countries. And though this may seem a generous gesture on our part, we have profited 1,000-fold by what they have brought us. Eleanor to Franklin, February 22nd, 1939. Are you willing I should talk to Sumner and say that we approve passage of Child's Refugee Bill? Hope you are having grand time. Much love, Eleanor. Franklin to Eleanor, February 22nd, 1939. All well on board, fine weather here, keeping to schedule. It is all right for you to support Child Refugee Bill, but it is best for me to say nothing till I get back. Much love, FDR. Eleanor to Franklin, March 10th, 1939. Sumner, etc., waiting for supporting word from you on Child Refugee Bill. European situation worsening daily. Much love, Eleanor. Franklin to Eleanor, March 11th. Being advised I must wait on Child Refugee Bill, cannot speak now. Much love, FDR. Eleanor to Franklin, April 19th. Will you speak on Child Refugee Bill soon? Looking here like support is weakening. Much love, Eleanor. Franklin to Eleanor, April 19th. Cannot right now speak on Child Refugee Bill. People are worried, floodgates, etc. Must wait. Much love, FDR. Eleanor to Franklin, May 20th. Reports out of Europe dark. People being beaten, being shot. People are dying. Child Refugee Bill needed now. Much love, Eleanor. Franklin to Eleanor, May 21st. Have conferred. All are afraid we will lose support for aid to Britain, etc. Also, upcoming Lend-Lease proposal will be a fight. Cannot speak for child refugee bill now. Much love, FDR. Eleanor to Franklin, June 11th. Child refugee bill being destroyed in committee. We need you. Much love, Eleanor. Franklin to Eleanor, June 11th. I'm sorry, all are saying I cannot speak for this bill. Too little to gain, too much at stake. Much love, FDR. Eleanor to Franklin, June 26th. Child refugee bill has been gutted. Will not matter even if passes. People desperate, situation worsening. Herr H getting bolder. What to do? Much love, Eleanor. Franklin to Eleanor, June 26th. Appeal to ICR. Much love, FDR. Eleanor to Franklin, June 27th. How to appeal to ICR? They have no funds. Reports from Europe say Herr H, watching us closely, wants Germany, quote, cleansed, end quote. Not just Jews, also Catholics, atheists, gypsies, homosexuals. If no country will have them, I fear what we can expect of him. Much love, Eleanor. Franklin to Eleanor, June 27th. I understand. Situation terrible, as you say, but my hands are tied. Much love, FDR. Eleanor to Franklin, June 28th. Mine are not. Much love, Eleanor.
All right.
That is half the story. If you want to know what she did.
Bring everybody up to give you a nice round of applause. And
if you want to know what she did, you have to buy the book.
The book.
From East City Bookshop.
All right. East City Bookshop right now. So FDR, I mean, nobody can fault his, taking us out of having a plan and getting us out of the Depression and the New Deal and also, getting into World War II and formulating a plan that was to be the winning plan, even though he didn't see the actual end. He was in, one of the major contributors to victory. But one of the things that I find a real loss to this country was that we had the Depression. And in that moment, you're always going to have a ruling class, but in that moment, everybody was equally poor. And at that moment, we had a chance for equality to grow from there. And when World War II came along and we could all thought as one, they segregated the army. I mean, what kind of crap is that? I don't care what greatness there was. That was a major mistake. There were come back after this and built houses near each other, and it saved each other's lives, and we'd be a hell of a lot stronger now, and we would not be in the position we're in. So, I mean, that's a dreamer, So what?
But he was a very practical guy, and that was one thing that he thought it's a better idea than fighting it. We need the white soldiers, and they won't work with the black soldiers. He also signed the Evian Agreement, where every country in the world decided the refugees were not their problem. They didn't have to take any refugees from Europe. And that directly led to the extermination camps in Germany, because Hitler realized then that A, he couldn't get rid of his Jews and his homosexuals and his gypsies and his Catholics by sending them away because they couldn't go anywhere. And B, nobody would care if he eliminated them. And that, may have happened anyway, but the practical nature of signing that agreement, the outcome, that's what you call unintended consequences.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yes. I think FDR is one of the best examples of both the best and the worst of pragmatism. He's pragmatism on one side helped, like Peter said, bring us out of the Depression. But on the other side, there was a lot of things that, as you said, unintended consequences from his pragmatic, careful political worldview.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And he could have used a little more either the ability to look ahead and see some of those consequences, or just a little more optimism, a little more unpracticality, and let's do this because it's right. And he did not he wasn't thinking that way.
No, and Eleanor went on to build integrated housing right after the war,
Yeah.
and worked all her life. You know, she would have been a
Yeah.
much better president. Too bad
Yeah.
he didn't pick her in that fourth term instead of Truman, because she would have been the president at that time.
Peter, sometimes I think that he and Abraham Lincoln, though, get a bad rap because there's a part of me that says he and Lincoln were incredibly practical people because they realized just how nasty and dirty and racist and just awful that layer existed under this sparkling American patina. And maybe they thought the only way to get from point A to point B is to be practical and to be. And the problem that they had was they didn't live to carry out phase two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's a part of me.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That wants to think that. I mean, I know that, you know, it might be counterfactual, but I mean, if you look at some of the things that they were trying to do, and their private kind of musings, you come away with this thought that they really did want to do what we wanted them to do, but they knew that there were just too many assholes out there. Mm-hmm. As you know, I mean, as evidenced of where I'm sitting right now, about a mile from about 100 of them, and
it's funny.
And I think that they realized that, and that they couldn't really push too hard because, you know, I mean, look, I mean, he didn't lead us into war. The Japanese attacked us, and the Germans had no choice but to declare war on us. Hitler didn't want to fight us, so he orchestrated that whole thing, and I think that it was. There's a part of me that thinks that he and Lincoln just, you know, they were men that said, look, we're a country of assholes. I can't push too hard, so I'm just going to be incremental, and we'll see what happens. And they just didn't live to see phase two.
It's an interesting thought idea about what would have
thrown that out there.
Well, no, I'm saying it's an interesting thought problem. What would America look like if Lincoln had been able to see Reconstruction through, and FDR had been able to see us through the end of World War II? So.
Right.
Definitely a different country, but how different? We can speculate. That's why we have the book. we can do that. So is it really my turn now? Oh no!
Yes.
Oh no!
You.
Okay. Well, I hate to leave all you guys off stage for me, but we get to talk about Trump now. The number 45. And thank you all for coming, and I'll put you off to the side, and we'll get together in just a second, okay? So see you in a minute. This number 45, this story for me was, you know, I take a man who's in the game of finance, of speculative economy, and he's into startups, and he just admires Donald Trump. And the reason I chose him for a protagonist is to allow someone else who's really in the game to know where to find the patsy, because this guy is the greatest patsy ever in the game. You know what I mean? He's the patsy we need to get rid of Donald Trump. So here we go with my story, but One Life to Give. Our man is going to the White House. He's finally going to get to sit face to face with Donald Trump because he has a foolproof idea that's going to make everybody money, and it's going to fix America. So we don't need a wall yet. We're going to have control along the border. So that's his idea, and he's now sitting in the Oval Office waiting to go or down the hall with the secretary. So here he is, and he's just met the secretary. "You must be Bo Brainer," she said through a smile. "I am indeed," I playfully responded. "My name is Valkyrie. I'll be your liaison until they call you in." She must have been late 20s, maybe early 30s. I couldn't take my eyes off her lightly curved breasts pressed inside a metallic blue tunic. She seemed to understand all at once. "Stare all you want. Valkyrie granted. Everyone else does. That's why I'm here. I'm really sorry. This is the first day of spring, Valkyrie flirted, adding, don't you have a girlfriend? I said, well, actually, I do. Her name is Alicia. I haven't seen her since we got back from Mexico 2 weeks ago. We went down to celebrate my setting up this meeting with the president. Where did you go? She asked. Cancun. I met her only a few months ago at a New Year's Eve party. I've been so wrapped up with this pitch. It was nice to get away and just relax for a bit. Sounds perfect. Soothed Valkyrie. Have a seat on the settee to my left. I heard that Vice President Pence is already inside with the president, so it shouldn't be much longer. Oh, funny you should ask. I sat down. Oh, no, here we go. Command, the kids are in the candy store. Obi-Wan, release the resin marker. Command, affirmative. Obi-Wan, every second counts now, over. When I sat, Valkyrie looked at my neck brace and asked, what happened to you? I told her that I had been parasailing mishap down in Cancun. It's funny, but I don't remember 1 second of agreeing to parasailing, or even parasailing at all for that matter. This was on our third day there. We'd been drinking a little, not much, a few shots of tequila, nowhere near blackout drunk. And the next thing I know, I'm in bed at the American hospital where a doctor is wrapping my neck with this thing. Alicia and I must have had some kind of Alicia said I must have had some kind of allergic reaction to the alcohol or something, because I was hell-bent on parasailing, and it sure seemed like I understood the instructions for liftoff, but when it came time to lift off, I took a step back instead of forward and jammed my neck against the side of the floating square dock and did some damage. Luckily, there were knowledgeable people there to get me untangled into the hospital. And the doctor was adamant that I do not remove this soft brace for 1 month or else. There was no way I was going to miss another meeting with my hero. How does it feel? Valkyrie asked. A little sore, I answered, and now it's starting to feel a little warm. I almost cut this damn brace off today. I was worried about first impressions. Don't, she blushed. You made a great one on me. Worked like a charm. She asked, where'd you get the name Bo? Funny you should ask. I sat down on the bench and continued. My parents were at the movies in the summer of 1979, and that was the first time I kicked my mother's belly. And when she looked up at the screen, there was the actor Beau Bridges in the movie Norma Ray. So I was named Bo for that reason. Had I been a girl, my name would have been Sally, since Sally Field was the star of that film. That's such a sweet story, Valkyrie cooed. Where did you get the name Valkyrie? Because I am a Valkyrie, she answered. Ha ha, I started laughing when the desk phone rang once and Valkyrie pushed speaker. Yes, Mr. President, she asked. Who is this? The inimitable voice thrust. My name's Valkyrie. What color is your hair? Trump asked. Valkyrie told him blonde. Good, he allowed. I told him to hire only blondes. And what size is your bra? 38D, Mr. President. There was a short silence. Trump asked, is my man out there with this wand thing? Yes, sir. He's very eager to see you. Well, tell him I'm sitting here with Mike and that Mitch and Linz are on their way. So as soon as they get here, we're going to bring him right in, okay? Trump said, yes, sir, agreed Valkyrie. He added, thanks. More silence. I told him 38 was unacceptable, Mike. Valkyrie turned off speaker and explained, they should be ready for you shortly. I had to get my game face on now. Trump, Pence, McConnell, and Graham, they'd be eating out of my hand in no time. My plan was win-win for the entire administration and the US of A. My soft brace was hot and strange to the touch. Command, the boys are back in town. Obi-Wan, what's the thermalite reading? Command, all systems go. Obi-Wan, this is bigger than Geronimo with SEAL Team 6. Command, copy that. Obi-Wan, we're going high. Over. What's this one thing this president spoke of? Valkyrie asked. A game changer, I answered, adding, no, a world changer. there's approximately 2,000 miles of U.S.-Mexican border, right? Valkyrie nodded. Well, on spot1.com, every U.S. citizen can sign in up to be a daily border control agent by logging on to the satellite surveillance platform, where every chosen agent is assigned a random quarter-mile sector to surveil for a 2-hour shift. And if there's any illegal activity, the agent reports this immediately, and the nearest border checkpoint will spring into action. Valkyrie asked, so you basically sign up to turn in your fellow man? Exactly, I agreed. It cuts right to the core of the human condition. We can keep our country safe with minimal expense above initial outlay and operating cost. Spot1.com will save the government billions, and our labor cost is zero. See, like I said, there are approximately 2,000 miles of U.S.-Mexican border, and each mile is broken up into quarters. So that makes 8,000 sectors. Then there are 12 2-hour shifts per day. That 12 times 8 for a total of 96,000 shifts per day. Plus, you use another 96,000 completely random backup agents to make sure the first shift doesn't try to use their power to abet the enemy. So say 200,000 Americans per day protecting our southern border. Who could be more patriotic? And what could be more patriotic? I guess you're right, Valkyrie admitted, but isn't Juan just a bit of a slur? Not in the least, I jumped. Juan stands for Joint Undesirable Alien Neutralization. Believe me, we've thought this thing out, and we could enhance this program by allotting tax credits to those who complete X amount of exemplary service, even put the Social Security into higher yield market. The possibilities are endless, and it's win-win for everyone. I'm going to stop there and bring everybody up. That's how you get it. Use that idea and get this guy in there. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't have a clue. And it's not off to the beginning. I mean, I can't say, I have to say, if they tied me to a chair and held like a lighter to my face, I'd have to say, no, it doesn't go off at the end. That's how the story ends, even though you don't know the ending exactly. I'd say, no, something goes wrong with the Thermalite. But he's the best. Bo Brainer's our man now. He beats the hell out of Lee Harvey Oswald. He's already gone with the rest of them. You don't have to send in Jack Ruby. Anyhow, it's a lot of fun, and I've had it with this. I just want to see the 25th Amendment. I want to see 3 senators on the other side get COVID and be gone and lose the election tomorrow. And we can turn this around now. I mean, every second counts.
I feel like the best outcome, though, regardless of who's running against him, is him to lose. I think his narcissism. The way he carries him, if you could just say you lost the one-term president, you lose, or it would drive him nuts. When he loses in November, by January he's going to be like naked, running up and down the street screaming because he just can't handle it.
trying to shoot people in the streets to see if people, he lost man.
Will they arrest him? Yeah. Well, we think of that. SJ, we met on Dark City Lights. Lawrence Block brought us together, right?
Yes.
On a very nice, it was a great anthology. And Erica, we met on Crime Plus Music.
That's right.
Jim Fusilli brought us together in that lovely anthology of crime-based noir. And Dark City Lights was New York-based noir. And Chris, we met in the Obama Inheritance with Gary Phillips. And Essay, this is our first, so I'm hoping we've got somewhere to go from here and talk about later on.
I would love it.
I couldn't be happier for all you to join us tonight, all 4 of you to join. I say 5, I see myself, but I'm not really there, I can't see myself. So what's our best bet? I like what you say, that he needs to lose. But
he does need to lose, because anything else will get the base all hysterical. especially if he gets sick. Much as everybody got excited when they had COVID in the White House. If he gets sick, it's it's going to be a Democrat, liberal, Jewish plot.
Yeah.
He just needs to lose. He needs to be kept in check between now and then he needs to lose, and big. I mean, it would be nice if he lost big, but
if he lost like the McGovern lost, that would be
Yes.
yeah.
But yeah,
But that would be the best outcome. And then talk about the rule of law. When he refuses to leave the White House, they can perp walk him out. Can you imagine? Wouldn't that be nice? But
they won't be able to put him in jail though because he could get COVID in there. That's too bad.
Right.
Yeah, but I heard that I don't know if this is true. You hear all kinds of things that Michael Cohen had asked for compassionate leave because there was COVID in the prison he's in, and Trump stepped in and said, "Don't do that," and he's still in.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
No.
Yeah.
What do you think? How about our DC people? You're in the thick of it. What do you think, Erica?
I'm on SA's team. I think he has to lose in the fall. I think anything else is going to be a mess. But a decisive loss in November, I think, is going to be cathartic and what the country needs. So
yeah,
fingers crossed.
I agree.
Yeah, I have a totally dystopian view of what's going to happen. I think he's going to lose, but I think it's going to be the reverse of 2016. I think that it's going to be very close, with Biden basically making up those 80,000 votes that Hillary didn't get.
Yeah.
And between November and January, he is going to pitch a fit, and all these armed riflemen and other jackasses are going to be here in the city. He's going to file something in the Supreme Court, and God only knows what Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and those other scumbags are going to be doing. So I think it's going to be like ancient Rome, when you got two different emperors vying for who's in charge.
Oh my God!
I have a dream of seeing him dragged out of the White House by his Marine detail, though. Just scratching those nails into the floor, and just being dragged out. That gets me through the night. So
I understand. Yeah. Yep. We've got a ways to go. And in the interim, we have our tool for resistance and literary.
Buy the book.
Thank you so much, Erica, SJ, and SA. Thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you, Peter, for putting the book together and for having us.
Having us.
One of how, who knows how many people could be, maybe they were watching, they want to know, wouldn't that be great? All of a sudden, they send Bo Brainer here. We got to be careful. Chris, we'll see you on next Tuesday, a week from today, right?
Yeah,
over out in LA with everybody. And
Harry.
With Harry. All right. So thanks so much for joining us in the DC area there, Erica and SJ. Thanks for coming on again.
Sure.
And joining us, and buy the book from East City while you can. And let's get through this together, and we're going to be stronger, and we're going to be wiser, and we're going to do the right thing once for once. We're going to be move forward in the right direction. Okay, guys, thanks so much.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Nice reading with you.
Bye.